Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. My name is Hemish, and since 2023, I've been interviewing some of the most talented and well-respected quality leaders in the pharma and biotech industry to learn how they got to where they are now. This season is all about our guests and their journeys. Why they got into science, how they got into quality, their biggest challenges and greatest learns, and the highs and lows along the way. Every week, I'll be bringing you a new guest with the purpose of inspiring the next generation of quality leaders. Welcome to Season 2. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. Today I'm joined by Jose Caraballo, a seasoned biotech leader who has been operating at vice president level in executive leadership positions with Kite for the last 4 years and is now leading the charge for digital transformation in QC at Kite Pharma. So I really wanted to speak with Jose because he started his career in engineering and made the strategic decision to move over to quality so that he could accelerate his development. We talk about some of the challenges that he faced in moving into a quality leadership role without any direct experience in quality, how he structures his leadership philosophy, and also why people should be excited by the future of cell and gene therapies. So, really excited to have him on the show. Let's get into it. Jose, how you doing? Welcome to Let's Talk Quality.
Hi, Hemish. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, pleasure to have you on. I've given you a very brief introduction, but if you could give the listeners and viewers a real just sort of overview of who you are and what your role is now, that'd be great.
Sure. I'm Jose Caraballo, a biotech leader with more than 30 years of experience. And currently I'm working at Kite, supporting the teams in their efforts to digitalize quality control labs, essentially getting rid of paper and transforming those processes into electronic systems.
Very good. So we're going to go back through your journey up until where you are now, which has been a pretty fascinating journey and career. So just, I guess, to set the scene, you've been at Kite now for how many years?
Approaching 4 years now. Yes.
Okay, fine. So you've been through some pivotal times with them, which we'll get into. Let's go back to the beginning then. How did you get into science initially?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Since I know myself, I've been always curious, looking how things work, asking a lot of questions. And when I got into high school, I really decided that science and math was the path that I wanted to follow. And that translated into some form of engineering back then. So I never lost that sense of curiosity and learning. And science is the best way we have right now to try to figure out what is more truth, right? The truth, how things work. Yeah. So I'm always fascinated by that. And I still carry that sense of curiosity and wonder as I keep learning everything I can.
Why do you think that was, that you had that sort of inherent curiosity? Was that from a young age?
It's a young age. It starts with, I grew up in a small town in Puerto Rico, and I wandered through the forest, through the rivers. Everything was like, how does this work? What's going on here? I will break up boxes to see what's inside. So it's just this normal, for me, is a normal, constant sense of understanding how things work. And the learning that comes from it.
Yeah, very good. I mean, look, I think curiosity is such an integral part of career growth and leadership, and asking the right questions is how you learn. So a lot of the leaders that come on this show, one of the key things that stand out is that curiosity aspect of it, of their kind of, that is inbuilt within them. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that, but also doesn't surprise me. So you're always interested in science. You're born out of curiosity. What was your first role in science, and how did that kind of come about?
Well, during high school, I felt privileged to attend high school that was focusing on science and math. So I had a sort of an immersion experience in everything science, chemistry, and mathematics. So in very early years, I would go to scientific fairs. I will try to present what I've learned. So I grew up in that sense. And when I had to make a decision on what to study as a career, engineering was a very natural option for me. I went through my college years, and then my first job was with a big company, Abbott, back in Puerto Rico, and they had this huge process that manufactured antibiotics. So my first experience in the job, in a role, was as a process engineer, monitoring this process, trying to figure out how to increase the yields, making sure that we were able to produce, right, at a very large scale. So that was my first application of what I've learned into the business world. And it was fascinating. Everything was new, big, and a lot of learnings.
Yeah, so it was all about yield, I suppose, at that point. And then how did so you started in the engineering side. How did that transition into the field of quality?
Oh, that was many, many years after that. So initially, imagine in 30 years, you end up doing many, many things. So the first half of my career, I spent in technical aspects of processes, process engineering, process development, scaling up processes, manufacturing science and technology, increasing yields, solving problems. And that was basically 40% of my career in different roles as process engineer or as head of purification or maybe head of MSAT for a company. And then at one point in my career, I acknowledged that I knew everything internal to the company, the process, the technical stuff. But if I wanted to grow, I had a sense that I needed to know the external part of it. And that includes suppliers, customers, complaints, stakeholders like regulators, right? And that's where I made the decision to accept a role as a quality site head for my company. And that really opened that other part of the business, which I call it the external perspective of a product, right? Everything, all the stakeholders that interact externally. So I think that was a good decision. Back then, one of my mentors said, "Why are you doing that? Stay in the technical side." But really? I had a sense of, let me try to understand this other part of the business, which is externally driven, right, by different stakeholders. So my switch to quality was in a quality site head role. And as such, I had to deal with all the internal stuff, the quality system, the labs, and everything else. But I also had the opportunity to expand my knowledge in the other side.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, you wanted to, I suppose, both develop your career, but also learn more about, the other side, the external aspect of the business, which you weren't involved with as much in that time. So you really proactively then looked at where you want to go in your career at a relatively early stage and thought, this is what I need to do to get to this level, in the future where I want to be.
Yes, I think it's once you're several years in a role, you either master it or you don't, right? And if you master it, you try to figure out, okay, what's the next learning? What's the next growth opportunity? Yeah. And I think that happened to me a couple of times. So looking at internally and externally also gave me the opportunity to look at decisions a little bit more strategically, right? Because it's not just how does it impact this area, these people, how does the big picture look like? So I also acknowledge that that also helps in your strategic view of things.
And what was your perception of quality as an industry before you went into it in that time?
When I started in industry, it was very focused on compliance, interpreting compliance and rules, and sort of overseeing that it was followed. It was the thought process was that's why they hired me too, right? And
Yeah.
when you're doing a compliance role, in the sense that if you don't do it, no one else would do it. And in
Yeah.
early stages, also other functions will say, "Well, that's quality's role
Yeah.
to check it. I'll do it, but I know that you will check it. So if I made an error, you caught it." That is very, very old school these days, and it will never work with the
Yeah.
complexity that we have today. So today, as I look back at my career, it has been really a transition of quality and compliance as quality's role to really it's everyone's role, right? And then also trying to understand that quality, for me at least, is excellence and continuous improvement. So, in to the extent that we can improve everything we deal with, everything we contribute to the extent that we can collaborate to bring better processes in the
Yeah.
mix, for me, that's the essence of quality, continuous improvement, and excellence. And compliance is just one of maybe 1,000 things that we need to take care
Yeah.
of, but it's not the main thing, and it's really everyone's job to support it. So it has been, in that sense, a transition in trying to understand really the role of quality and what quality brings to organizations.
Well, let's talk a bit about that, because obviously it was a strategic move for you to take that role from your career perspective. But was there anything that you, because you just said the perception of quality back then was very different to what it is now. I can't imagine, you'd have been sort of, overly attracted, other than the point of developing your own career. What was it that attracted you to that quality aspect, or taking on that site head of quality role? Was there anything that stands out, thinking this is something that I'm really looking forward to?
Yeah, reflecting back, my years in manufacturing science and technology, that was a role in one of the companies where you increase yield, you improve the processes, you investigated events, you answered customer complaints and do an investigation there. So, from a technical role, you were supporting what back then we needed to make sure that the drugs were safe and effective and that they complied, right? We
Yeah.
validated the process, we qualified. So in that role, I was working very closely with my quality colleagues to a point that it's basically the same. We're trying to do the same thing. I'm focusing on the process, but you're focusing on the filing, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on the batch record, you're focusing on the complaints, but we're all trying to do the best for our patients. So, yeah, that was it was not a hard transition for me after going
Yeah.
through the MSAT role and then collaborating with quality very closely and then accepting to lead that function for the company.
Do you think it's an easy? Not sorry, that's the wrong word to use. But do you think, because this podcast is all about, I suppose, inspiring future quality professionals and leaders and shining a light on the industry, and part of that would be to bring more people into quality leadership in the future. So you've obviously come from a slightly different background where you haven't gone through the traditional, you weren't a QC then QA, and it was different functions. Do you think that I suppose your background has now helped you from having the experience that you had in the technical internal side? How has that helped you now in taking on a bigger role? And we'll get into what you're doing now and stuff in the future in a bit. But how has that, I guess, evolved your career, and how has that helped you become the professional that you are now?
Good question. I think for me, it has to do a lot. I mean, I'm convinced that a quality professional that knows the technical stuff can be more useful, knows the language, can be more creative and collaborate, right? If you don't know it, then you learn it, right? In my case, I learned it from the cradle, from the beginning. So it was easy for me to have that skill when
Yeah.
making quality decisions. Um, I can recall colleagues that knew very little about the technical aspects of process or products, and they will ask 1,000 questions before saying yes. That would drive anyone crazy, versus someone that really understands the technical aspects of the product, of the process, may ask one or two questions, right? Because that already is part of it. So, in that sense, I think a well-skilled, competent, quality professional is an asset to any organization. I truly believe that quality is a strategic advantage. So companies that incorporate quality as part of the culture, right? Making sure we do the right thing, that we innovate, that we learn from our mistakes, that we execute in order to meet our patients' needs. It's really a very strategic advantage. The other side would be not to focus on quality, leave it as an afterthought, or be very reactive about it. Only talk about quality when you're trying to fix something very bad. And that's not a winning proposition, especially in these days where our processes are more complex. They really need to be managed in a different level. You cannot just guarantee that something will come up as chemistry, right? For example, we're talking about biotech and the cell and how the variability there really inserts a lot of complexity. So knowing your technical stuff, I think, is a prerequisite to make good decisions in the quality realm.
Yeah, really. This might be a difficult question to answer, sort of, without really going into detail of it. But like for people that are in the same sort of role function of that you were, 20 years ago, for example, in that engineering space, where do you think you would be, I suppose, if you hadn't taken that leap into quality? Like, how would your career evolved had you not taken that quality site head role?
Yes. And I forgot to mention that my opinions are my own, right? And
Of course.
that they do not necessarily reflect those of my current employer or former employers, right? For what I'm about to say. But I think I would have stayed in the technical side, tech transfers, technology innovation, development, maybe. Those will be like career path for me. I may probably invest some time in getting a graduate degree in a technical side, so that those competencies will translate into the job. So that's where I would see myself, like a technical operations head or development head.
Yeah. And I suppose and then so that quality site head role, was that which company was that with?
That was back then. That was with Abbott Labs.
Abbott Labs. So what were the challenges then? To take us back there, what were the challenges that you, I guess, faced not having a great deal of hands-on sort of quality experience, and then coming into a role? Like, what was your team's structure, size like, and from a, I guess, people perspective, like, what challenges did you face?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, for me, the technical part was given. I understood it very well. So I think for me, what was new was regulators, for example, interacting with during inspections, during filings, attending meetings with the FDA for certain changes that we needed to make. All that was new to me, and you need to learn it, acquiring the soft skills, developing a clear communication style, making sure that you're effective in presenting ideas and communicating ideas. Those were learnings for me. And the other part was suppliers. Talking about quality, you interacted with suppliers. Now each supplier has their own quality system, so you need to be a little bit humble and listen. How is your quality system appropriate, right, for me to accept your product? And you multiply that by 100 suppliers, those are 100 conversations. Again, a lot of listening, trying to understand and trying to figure out the impact of what is not the same as yours. Does it matter? Should I put some energy there? Should I put a requirement there in order to meet my requirements, or is this okay? So it really opened the conversation on trying to understand other supplier systems. So that was a learning for me as well. Asking for resources, that's a learning. You need to go to your management and say, look, we have an increase of 50% of samples in our labs. This requires a certain amount of hours. This is the most efficient way we can execute. We still need 2 more technicians, right? That's in some companies a hard sell. It's data driven, but it depends on you to bring the case to management. So that's like the leadership or managerial aspect of trying to make sure that you have the right resources for the scope of work you need to execute. So those were learnings back then.
So I suppose the soft skills side of things, so communicating your vision, communicating with your people, liaising with the FDA, the regulators, you're thrown into that world where you've all of a sudden got to do that. Did you have people to learn from, mentors? How did you, I guess, go about improving those softer skills, I suppose? Because that's the from, like you said, the technical aspect is a given at your stage.
Yes, I had a couple of mentors. I would say 3 mentors that I recall. And back then, I would try idea with my mentors for very important presentations. I would ask them, "Can you give me the raw feedback, right? Not the nice feedback, the raw feedback. How can I improve?" Decisions, sometimes I will consult with them also, and they will very gracefully tell me as it is. I think that's a crazy idea, or I would not do that. So all that advice, obviously, for whoever who has a mentor knows what I'm talking about, is very valuable because sometimes you're in a bubble and you need to really reach out and get a different perspective. So mentors were important in my career development, and I really treasured their advice very well.
And what would you describe? How would you describe how your, I guess, leadership style has evolved over the years from when you started versus now?
Yes.
What are those? What does that look like from if someone said to you, what does Jose the leader look like 15, 20 years ago versus now?
Oh my goodness.
What would you say?
I've gone a long way. Day one, just out of college as an engineer, very technically oriented, analytical. I'm an introvert by nature. So I was, to quote some of my colleagues back then, many, many years ago, very controlling supervisor. I needed to know everything, right? So today, really, I have several pillars that I use for my leadership. One, obviously, is accountability. If you see something, don't complain, don't point fingers, own it, right? Try to fix it, work with people to fix it. Accountability, how to promote that in your team is very important. The other point is empowerment. Basically, I've learned that the problems are best solved where it happens, right? So at the work level, so you need to empower people to let them figure out what they're learning from it, how to improve it, what happened, right? So empowerment is a big piece of it. And the third one would be, I would say, clarity. How do you connect what you're doing today with the purpose, right? Why are you doing it, right? Is this if you ask any of my team members and they don't know why they're doing this, how that's connect to the purpose, then obviously you fail, right, as a leader. So for me, clarity and checking for clarity has been important. And I would add, lastly, being a role model also, right? Trying to be accountable, making data-driven decisions, I think also supports the leadership style that I show up with.
Yeah. I like how you've broken that down. I think obviously that those four pillars in itself gives you clarity in your own mind around how you operate. And what you mentioned there, you may have come across as controlling as a leader when you first started out. How did you? I think that's a huge thing for any leaders is relinquishing and learning to trust other people and people in your team, and letting go so that you don't become the bottleneck. How did you? Are there any things that you did practically that you can remember of to improve that ability to be less controlling and let go of certain things?
Yeah. Back then, still today, I'm an avid reader. These days, I have less time to read so much, but I recall a model that I learned and I used. I think it's still called situational leadership, right? Is that awareness from a leader that not everyone needs the same things in your team. So you may have a very junior person come in and they need the controlling, the exact things that they need to do for the week because they're just learning, versus others that are very competent or empowered. You let it go.
Yeah.
You only check with them if they need any resources, versus the masters of their trade that they call you if they need something for it. So as long as you're aware of providing what each team member needs, I think that's very valuable. So today I learned to shift, right, pivot, and really try to understand, okay, what do we need in this situation? And with time, I've been able to execute that, right, and support me in that way. So that's basically one way of managing that, right? Initially, newly graduated supervisor, I thought I needed to control everything. Obviously, that's not true, but you need to go through that process of interacting and engaging with people.
Definitely. Yeah, very good. Well, I suppose the point you mentioned there around clarity and purpose, I think not to kind of fast forward too much because there's a huge chunk of your career, but you've spoken a lot of there about like some of the challenges you faced earlier on in your leadership career and how you've evolved as a leader. You've now been at Kite now in a really sort of senior leadership exec role for the last 4 years or so. They've obviously been through some incredible achievements in during that time. Talk us through that, like starting at Kite in would have been 2020,
after the pandemic,
or whatever
yes.
it was, 2021. Yeah, fine. So, talk us through that journey, and we can maybe touch on purpose and the work that you guys are doing.
Okay, so I mean, for me, being in biotech, 95% of the time, I've seen different processes. Right, I started with classical fermentation, doing antibiotics, then moved into monoclonal antibodies, and then hemophilic factors and proteins. And now, when coming to cell and gene therapy, you think it's similar, but it's not. It's very different. So I think one of the learnings for me is to make sure that I'm adaptable, because cell and gene therapy is still is considered new, right? You still don't have all the best practices settled for the industry or for those processes. So being adaptable was, for me, one of the big lessons I needed to learn. Yep. The other feature that I learned very fast from the first week, first day, is how patient-centric this industry of cell and gene therapy is. It's impossible for you not to acknowledge that the patient is the reason why we're here, and is everything you do is tied to that purpose. It's tied to that end game, right? That we want to serve our patients with a life-saving therapy. So patient centricity is a unique feature, as I learned it in cell and gene therapy. The third one I would say is speed. Good speed, timely speed. You have a patient that is waiting in a treatment center for this therapy, so the execution needs to be flawless. The product needs to come out at the right time, right? Not too soon, not too late, at the right time, in order for the treatment center to use it for the patient. So when you talk about speed, then I've learned how to relook at risk assessments, for examples. And in other companies, you would do a risk assessment. The product is going to inventory or not. In this case, it's a patient. They're just waiting. So the impact of your decisions are connected with that outcome. And you really need to master how you make decisions and assess risks. Because it's the time is shorter, right, to do that.
Yeah.
So all those have been learnings, and for me to adapt to this type of environment.
When you're going into that role into cell therapy, you hadn't worked in? Correct me if I'm wrong. You hadn't worked in cell therapy before.
No, this was just my first time working with cell therapy.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I worked for Bayer.
In
tech transfers and product transfers, and for Amgen, monoclonal antibodies and devices.
So how do you? Because it's like you said, you have to be adaptable, and that adaptability is very much a mindset shift, isn't it?
It is
how you.
So for me,
what you're used to.
Yes. After so many years in quality, you end up with a deeper understanding of what are the principles, the core critical aspects of quality that you need to defend no matter what, right? So that's like a line that you don't want to cross. But with your experience, you're able to get a good sense of that, right? So as long as everything else is before that line, there's an opportunity to improve. There's an alternate way to do things. There's a conversation to have with the regulators. And that's where the adaptability comes in, right? So, for example, if you have a situation that may impact operations, but you know that you have patients waiting for that equipment, you may have a different decision in cell and gene therapy, right? What do we need to do to make it available now? Versus in another company, what do we need to make it available next week or next month, right? Because the urgency and the impact is different. So having a deep understanding of what is the critical compliance aspects that we really need to comply with, I think that's a good advantage because everything else then is a space where you can innovate, look for better ways of doing things, discuss alternate ways or alternate approaches.
When you obviously Kite have had some incredible milestone commercial approvals in Yescarta and Tecartus. When you look at how cell therapy will evolve, it's evolved so quickly in just the last 5-10 years. But when you look at the next 10 years, what are some of the key changes or key evolution points that you see happening in the industry?
Yes, that is a good question. Looking at the industry as a whole, cell and gene therapy, there are a couple of trends that you can pick up very, very quickly, and I think they're real. One is the effort to somehow close the process, right? Execute this process in a closed manner. That will simplify facilities, designs, mitigate risks, etc. So I will foresee that closing the process will yield for a more robust process, right, and consistent product. And there are a lot of companies that are putting effort to do that. The other aspect is automation for the same reason, right? Consistency. If you can automate, I don't know, visual inspection or whatever. I think that's another trend. The amount of data that comes out of these processes, gigabytes of data, I think there's a space there for data analytics and maybe even AI as you hear it, listening to it as a tool. How do you translate and benefit from all that data in order to improve your process? I think that's another theme. that I think would be true. And the other one would be making it accessible to everyone. So as you know, the cost structure for these new therapies are high. So a lot of companies are also putting a lot of effort in how to make it more cost efficient so that it's accessible to everyone. And that definitely has to do with the automation, the closing of the process, optimizing your process, maybe accelerating your process, right? Instead of 2 or 3 weeks of duration, how about 2 or 3 days, right, of duration? So those are, I think, tendencies that would apply to all cell and gene therapies moving forward.
Yeah. Why do you think the industry and patients and patient population should be should feel hopeful and feel excited about the future of these therapies and these products that are so life changing? Hopefully you feel positive about it, and I suppose
feel
why should
positive
others?
about it. It's amazing the potential that these therapies and these methodologies have to cure disease, to help alleviate disease. It's biology. I feel like we're just a little bit scratching the surface. If you look at all the clinical studies that are happening right now and all the different diseases that we're targeting as an industry, you only have to think, gather hope. The only sentiment would be hope. There's a lot of hope in getting the right therapies because it's hard. It's a complex field, but the potential is there to really make a difference. And I compare this age of biology as like when we had the internet, right? As it was a revolution. So I see cell biology as also the source of all these revolutions to help people.
Excellent. Brilliant. Jose, we're coming towards the end. I usually end with some quick fire questions that I'll throw at you. But I guess just to cap off the discussion, you've had such a great journey and transitioned into quality. You've got some experience that you've gained in your early career that you've taken into your career in quality leadership. Looking ahead now, what does the future look like? I guess for you and what you're excited about.
Yeah, that's also a great question. At this stage of my career, as you know, I'm an eternal learner. I also like to share my knowledge. So right now, I do that through organizations like PDA and ISPE, and I look forward for opportunities to learn and share. So I think if I can find a place where I can continue to do that. Maybe also help organizations make the hard decisions or the strategic decisions with what I bring to the table, understanding the impact of some decisions and the ripple effects. I think that's the space that I would like to pursue as next options for me.
Very good. Well, wishing you all the luck with everything over in your current career and in the future. But let's finish things off with a few quick fire questions. My first question is around your values, and I suppose what do you hold as the 3 most important values that you live and die by?
Yes, for me, doing the right thing. The sense of ethics is very deep in me. So it's hard for me not to do the right thing as I interpret it. So that's an intrinsic value for me. The other one is to improve everything I interact with. It could be a process, it could be a relationship, it could be a person. I'm always looking to leave it better than how I found it or I received it. And the third for me is really personal, is being available for my family and my friends and what they may need. I feel that they have given so much to me that I'm always in debt to them. And I have that sense of trying to figure out, okay, how can it help?
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes on nicely to the next question, which is who's been the biggest inspiration in your life? And this could be personally or it could be professionally.
Yeah, in terms of inspiration, I did have a mentor early in my career that I also used as a role model, right? He was progressing. And I think that would be very significant for me because it really forced me to think what I really wanted. He always said, look, you can do anything you want, but pick one, right? Don't wander in your life just taking everything you see, have a direction, and then try to hit towards that direction. That was very valuable for me in my early age and early career decisions.
Very good. Final question. What one piece of advice would you give to future and aspiring quality leaders?
I would say adaptability. It's in a lot of sense, it's a superpower to be adaptable, to be humble, to listen and learn, and then adapt to the situation. Everything we do these days it's so complex that you really need to leave a lot of space for you to adapt to what's happening and not come with preconceived ideas. That would be, I guess, the best advice I can give you. And obviously, be curious. Keep asking the questions and learn more.
That's great. Jose, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think it's been an extremely insightful conversation. You're also part of our upcoming mentor scheme. So delighted to have you on board and some people, some lucky aspiring quality leaders will be very fortunate to have you guiding them and sharing your wisdom and experience. So if people want to get hold of you, is LinkedIn generally the best way to do that?
It's the best way. It's public. They can reach out to me through LinkedIn. Yes, absolutely. And Brilliant. Thank you for having me. Awesome. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure to have you. Take care. Thank you very much, Jose.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.